Welcome to Playing Full Out. I'm your host, Augie Bylot, and each week we visit with interesting people who not only make money, but they make a difference. This is where we spread the good news about enlightened wealth, success that serves others. And this week's special guest is Gary Harper. And Gary's the founder and CEO of Sharper Business Solutions. Gary, it's great to have you here with us.
Oh man, thank you for having me. This has been a treat and an honor so far, just to get to know you a little bit more, and now to be able to address your audience. I appreciate you allowing me to be part of your journey here.
Well, that's great. And, Gary's firm, Sharper Business Solution, helps organizations simplify, clarify, and achieve their vision. He's also a husband, a father, and he's a real estate investor. He's an expert in business system and process management. And over the past 20 years, his expertise in systems and process has helped over 240 companies. So Gary, I'm really thrilled to have you here today too. We have a lot of business associates and friends in common, and I'm so glad to get to connect with you a little bit as well. So
Yeah,
what's your journey been like?
Well, I started off a little rocky coming out of high school. For me, I actually didn't complete high school. I was in a lot of trouble in high school, and it was probably, like most visionaries, trying to swim upstream when everybody's being taught to swim together. And I just challenged the status quo in a lot of things in life, and rules were one of those things, right? So ended up stabilizing my life by moving to Indiana, and I ended up getting my GED and then going to college. So I just went to college at 17, 18 years old. My brother-in-law, Wayne Schaefer, was really a big pivotal point in my life. He's a good friend of mine, a mentor of mine. Was in real estate starting back in 1995. And so he just kind of worked me to death, to get he always said he's going to get the evil out of me, right? So he worked me to death, and he would drop me off 5 o'clock in the morning at one of his houses and pick me up at 9, 10 o'clock at night. And I just worked all day long on rehabbing houses at a young age. And that builds a lot of character. And, and then going from being and by the way, it was free labor. I guess it was exchanged for food and a warm place to sleep. But through that journey, I went and ended up going to college and studying pastoral theology, and it was something I wanted to now start helping helping the youth, right? And I kind of felt like, I wasn't like born into a poor family or not a parents, mom and dad didn't want me. I just straight rebellion out of ignorance, and so I wanted to impact our youth and help guide them properly, and so that was where my heart and desire was. Just like many people, we get a little distracted at sometimes or our purpose, and we have to make a living, and I was no different. At the early age of 20 years old, I ended up getting married, or right around 19, 20 years old, and then went to work in Chicago. And by the age of 21, I was able to achieve what we call National Manager of Business Initiatives and Development at the time for a small to mid-sized firm, and then went on to work for a Fortune 500 company and consulting other Fortune 500 companies around the country, and helping them with their business, their systems, or processes, their non-core function type activities, and helping them allow them to focus essentially on what they do well. And so became a Six Sigma expert and other things along the way. And then, still had this itch of working in real estate. And my brother-in-law Wayne kept pulling me back in. Every chance I got out, he pulled me back in. And 2004 came along and really started to go full-time more as a real estate investor, not just as a laborer in real estate. And I started buying rentals and, chasing that cash flow dream that, Robert Kiyosaki and the late Carlton Sheets talked about these in the late 90s, and I read those books, and with the mentorship of Wayne, it was something I really started having passion for. And unfortunately, like many entrepreneurs at that time, I was definitely affected by the downturn of 2007 to 2010, and felt that in a really hard way. And I was leveraged way too much on my properties. They also hit us in the area with reassessing our taxes. And so it blew our escrows up, and we ended up in, a really bad way, taking just about every dime we had saved over those years to try to salvage and keep the properties. And fortunately, we weren't able to do that. We ended up having to get a lot of the houses, go back to the bank, and then file foreclosure on our on most of them. So learned a lot of lessons. We always say,
Mhm.
I never say you fail. I always say you learn, or you win, right? So, and then we definitely learned. So, which is still a form of winning. Then we went from that into 2011. I call that my year of Job, because that's the year I lost everything, and I didn't just lose my house, or not my house, my houses. I lost my health. I got bit by a tick, came down with Lyme's disease, almost passed away from it. Went back to like a 5-year-old mental state for a long time, and had to step down from my corporate America job where I had been very successful. I'd won 8 out of 10 years. I'd won executive of the year. You actually can see a lot of the awards right here behind me on my
Mhm.
shelf from
Sure.
those years. And but Lord was using that time to prepare me for a next beginning. And I remember getting better at the end of that year. And again, my brother-in-law Wayne, who's always been a very influential man in my life, he's turned to me. He says, "Gary, what are you gonna do?" I said, "Well, I'm gonna go back to Chicago. I'm gonna go back to my job." And he goes, "Hey, you think God took you out of that just to put you back in it?" And I said,
Mhm.
honestly, man, don't tell me that, right? Like I need to go back, and that $200,000 job a year looked really good at that point.
You
And
bet.
he says, well, I think you ought to come join me. And the opportunity presented itself for me to go work with him, and started off as a contractor with him, and then went into ownership of a couple companies with him, and we helped scale that business along with many other very, very smart individuals, Tom Olson and others, to grow that business to almost well, 1 year we did 300 deals that year in
Mhm.
2016. And a lot of great men have been come out of that group: Josh Kohler and Dave Richter and Tom Olson and me and Wayne and others have now provided a lot of value to this industry. And
Mhm.
we were a good team. We worked together for a long time, and started good success in 2016, 17. And then Sharper Business Solutions was born. And I kind of felt like it was the completion of a journey for me. The Lord gave me the ability to help these Fortune 500 companies, give me the tools that I needed on my tool belt. And then the combination of real estate, losing,
Mhm.
rebounding, and then coming back out of that miry clay allowed me to have the wisdom to be able to help and guide others. And so those two worlds came together. We married them together, and Susan, my wife, retired after 17 years of teaching, and she joined me, and we started traveling and helping people. And Sharper Business Solutions is actually named after her, so it's Susan Harper, so it's S. Harper
Mhm.
Sharper. And that's our journey, man. That's where we've come from. And we've not arrived in any way, shape, or form. And I always tell people success is reaching where you intend to be. and
Mhm.
um, and this is and even further than that, success in my eyes is reaching where God intended for me to be. And I think we're there right now. I think we're where we're intended to be right now, but I don't think we're where we're going to be. I think we still have an opportunity to continue and grow and help more people. So
Well, yeah, it tends to be a journey rather than a destination, I think, is what I've learned with a lot of my guests.
yeah,
And you certainly are right in line with that. And I really appreciate you telling me so much of your backstory.
sure.
It's fascinating. I mean, because where you started with kind of a heart for ministry and then a head for business, and the fact that you were sharpened through a number of things,
Mhm,
both positive and learning,
mhm.
which is still positive, though sometimes painful.
Yeah,
Lessons are not always without some challenge or some pain or some frustration or some angst
yeah,
or some loss. And it's a fascinating story, and it sounds to me like you're now in a position where you get to call on all of those experiences.
yeah.
It's one of the reasons I feel so blessed.
Mhm.
Is I was a banker for 22 years. Then I went into ministry full time because I could take an early retirement because of real estate.
Wow.
And then thinking I was going to semi-retire, God had different plans, and Creating Wealth USA was born. And now I get to couple the creative financing stuff that I learned in the banking industry, along with my, ministry background at service and serving others. And it's just been amazing.
Yeah.
And so what would you say is maybe the biggest factor that's helped you to be successful? Now, I know you mentioned your brother-in-law and, some other things, but if you were to kind of whittle it down to help people kind of understand.
That's a great question. I think I don't think any of us are who. I mean, I'm not just Gary Harper, right? Like I am a person who's made up of successful people, and so I think successful people surround themselves with successful people. If you want to term the word success, the Bible talks about success in Joshua chapter 1:8, and it says to have good success, right?
Hmm.
And it measures the quality of success, not the quantity. And so I've always I look at success as the quality of the life that I'm living, the quality of how I live that life, and how the quality of how I give back to others. And so I think the key for me was surrounding myself with successful people and not focusing on their weakness, but focusing on their strength and how I could benefit and learn from that strength. And so today, as I sit here today, I'm a combination of Gary Harper Sr. and Wayne Schaefer and many other men, Randy Erickson and others who have taken time to invest in who I am.
Hmm.
And I think being able to learn and be moldable and listen and being willing to shoot down your ego and know that it's not all about you, it's about the cause, it's about the purpose for why you're here, is what I think drives me to success. I think everybody's a little different, but that's at least what it is for me.
Yeah, I like your use of the word moldable, because it means that we're flexible, we're capable of change,
Yeah.
and transformation is a big part of what I know I work on with a lot of my clients,
Mhm.
because they want to be somebody who they're not today,
Yeah,
right? And that demands transformation.
absolutely.
So, what helps guide you, on your path, especially when you have to meet challenges or make tough decisions?
What helps guide me is mindset, having the right mindset. For me, I think I think most visionaries tend to be prone to depression, because they can see where they want to be, but, that elusiveness of it and not
Hmm.
there yet. And, striving. And man, I'll tell you, somebody was with me the other day and they're like, they spent a week with me and they're like, man, you spend more time talking people off the ledge than you do anything. And I'm like, well, it's just because they're excited about where they're going. They want to get there and they don't know if what they're doing is enough. Right. And, what can I do to speed that up? And I think the mindset around that and having the right mindset of like, focusing on what's true, if you will. I always ask this question whenever I start to borrow from tomorrow's problems, or I start to get frustrated with where I am, or I hurt for a client, and I just ask, and I said it this morning to a guy. It's like, what you're saying right now, is it true? Is it really true what you're saying? Is it truthful, or are you borrowing from a problem that could potentially be happening? And his response was, yeah, it's not true yet, but it could be. And I'm like, well, don't let tomorrow's problems rob you of today's presence, right? And that's kind of my guiding factor there. I like to have I always tell people the 4 reasons we fail, not just in life but in business. Number one's fear. Number two is mindset.
Hmm.
you know, and number three is connections, and number four is having the right systems and processes, includes the people in our lives that we need to have in order to scale. But a good question. I appreciate that question.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate your response, especially, the idea of not staying in the present, because the present is the only thing that we can exercise any personal control over. We can't
Yeah.
deal with tomorrow's problems because tomorrow's not here yet, and they haven't even become a problem yet. And a lot of
Yep.
people drag yesterday's baggage with them when they could literally leave it on the side of the road to be picked up and tossed in a dumpster, because you can't
Yeah.
go back and change it.
And Zig Ziglar used to call that stinking thinking.
That's
You know.
right, thinking. Yeah, yeah, he was a fascinating guy.
And
Oh my,
really dating ourselves. There's people listening going, Zig Ziglar, who's that? Right?
yeah, yeah. Well, that's true, but you can Google Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn, two,
Oh my
two
gosh.
brilliant minds that really helped uplift a lot of business people over the years. Um,
Iconic. Sure.
yes, indeed. Now, do you have any kind of habits that you've developed that you employ on a regular basis that kind of structure either the start of your day or your whole day or your week?
Yeah. So I like to live within a system. Obviously, I'm a
Mhm.
kind of a
Yeah,
system and
you're a systems
process
guy, so.
guy. So I do. Yeah. So I have a routine. I get up every morning. I always my first thing is water is kind of the best ingredient for life, you know. And so I try to get as much water in me as I can right out the gate. Usually, when I go to bed at night, I put a big thing of water right next to my bed, so I drink it and I take some amino acids. I try to get my body just going well. Obviously, I struggled with Lyme's disease and still do, so
Mhm.
I have to support my immune system and things. But I think that's a good practice for anybody. We don't drink enough water, and as much as I fly, I try to keep that. So that's the first thing I do in the morning. And that's not, on a podcast like this, you're not going to hear like, usually something like that. And I think, those are the little things, those intangibles
Mhm.
that help us be 100% every day, right? And so Susan and my wife and I, we both read a lot. We try to read 3 books a week. So that's something that we do. And when I say read, I listen a lot on Audible. And
Mhm.
sometimes if I really get into the book, I'll listen to it multiple times and then buy the book and take notes in the book. But with flying like we do, we fly to 3 to 5 times a week. You can
Mhm.
get to a book on one flight, depending on how long the flight is, right? At 1.5 speed.
Sure.
So that's a practice for us. Um, I value education. I always say you're going to pay for education one way or the other. Either pay with failure or you pay with learning ahead of time and guiding before the turn.
Mhm.
But I used to pay my son to read, my daughter and my son. I wouldn't pay him for chores, but I'd pay him $40 a book that they'd read on success or business or self help, and then write a one pager on it. So reading is essential for me. The other thing is I like to journal. Me and my wife both like to journal. We like to take time and write things down and get things out of our head. I do a thing called, a mental cleanse regularly. And the
Mhm.
mental cleanse is I sit down and I write down all negative thoughts in my mind for 10 minutes. And then I write down all the blessings in my life for 10 minutes. And usually about that point, I need to either close my eyes or take a 5-10 minute nap. It just drains me to to release that stuff. And then I write down innovation. The last thing like take 10 more minutes and write down innovation, any great ideas that are coming to my mind. So usually I feel like if I can get that clutter out, that negative thoughts, all the poor, the airwave stuff that comes into the TV and the radio and, negativity and coronavirus. And, I
Mhm.
can sit here right now and starts popping out like all the negative stuff we're consumed with, even when we don't want to be.
Sure.
And get that out of the way. Then Bible says, Merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bone. So I then spend time pulling out like all the things I'm thankful for. And I feel like that kind of heals the mind in a way. And
Mhm.
when I do those two things, my mind really opens up to a clear picture of where I need to go and what I need to do. And so I do that regularly, depending on what's going on that week. I definitely do it every Friday, but I try to do it multiple times a week if I have time. But those are the things. I mean, just regular routine stuff, and then the day gets filled with guiding the businesses. I have a daily meeting set up with my integrators. I actually call them business unit leaders. Most people know EOS, and I'm an EOS implementer, and
Mhm.
so some people call it that. But I've just called it business unit leaders for the last 20 years. So I just kind
Mhm.
of stuck with that. But I have same page meetings with them regularly, and to keep my businesses moving forward, keep my vision going in the right direction, and keep me grounded. So
I like that idea of the mental cleanse as part of just your mindset discipline, because mindset is so important. We can only
yeah,
do those things we believe we can do. And
absolutely.
most of us don't nearly believe what we're capable of, don't even understand. And so we limit ourselves. And I like your tip about water as well,
That's
because
important.
dehydration is something we don't even feel most of the time. And yet,
Sure.
I read something recently that probably 70% of Americans spend part of each day in a dehydrated state, which I think
Wow. You
seems
read that?
weird.
Wow.
But
That is incredible.
yeah, so everybody should drink at least another 16 ounces of water a day, and you'd be surprised that your mental state and your acuity, your clarity would all improve. So
Yep. Absolutely.
that's a great tip to bring to the table. Um, what are some of the most valuable lessons that you've learned along the way? You know, you've had a 20 plus year business career, and you've definitely ridden the roller coaster.
Mhm.
What are some of the best lessons that you've taken away?
So obviously, all this is kind of impromptu and improvising to thoughts and stuff. But the first thing that comes to my mind is um, managing myself not to stay stuck too long. I think that's probably the biggest thing for me is it's just not staying stuck. We all hit a wall. We all get stuck at some point,
Mhm,
and learning how to manage through that and get myself moving forward and not stuck is really important to me.
mhm,
And I always tell people you're gonna get stuck, and you're gonna need help getting unstuck. And most people want to cross their arms and say, "I'm good, I got this," and that's not good, because it's not a matter of ask when you'll ask for help or if you'll ask for help. It's a matter of when you'll ask for help.
mhm,
And so if we wait too long, we'll just stay stuck longer, and we talk about delegating, and what you need to do to delegate in your business. And what is delegating? Delegating is asking for help, you know,
sure.
and we'll delegate areas where we're weak in business, but we won't delegate the areas of our life that we're weak in and that we get stuck in. So being willing to ask for help. And it's just that ego thing, that ego
Mhm,
pops up and slows us down. I find a lot of people, aren't successful because, they're a parasite on their own life, their own business,
mhm,
and they're not willing to put that hand out and just go, "Hey, can I get some support here?" The other thing too that I think it's helped me, and I've learned over the years, is having the right vision. Having a vision plan, having something that guides me. The Bible says, "Where there's no vision, the people perish."
mhm,
And so I think it's really important, not just for us, but the people around us that we're leading and guiding, to have a documented and communicated vision plan on where we're going, and then seek counsel on it. You know, I said earlier, fear, mindset, connections. One of the things with connections, and one of the things I love about masterminds, is that it provides connections, but it provides connections in multiple ways. One is to help bounce your ideas by, to make sure you're going down the right path, but also to lift you up when you're stuck,
mhm.
you know. And so, I think I could probably spend about an hour on that topic alone answering that question, but I think probably top three of those are it for me.
No, I think those are great responses. Um, you know, you've talked about role models. You've named a number that you've had, and
Mhm.
I usually ask folks to talk about some of their role models, but I'm going to switch it up since you've already shared some. Why is it important for people, from your perspective, to have role models?
Well, I think they help guide us. We all have core values. I tell people we have virtues that we live by. We have values that we live by. We all have a set of core values we live by.
Mhm,
And from a young age through our young adulthood, it really helps mold who we are at our core. You know, and one of the exercises I do to help discover people's core values, I tell them to name three people that's made a positive impact, or positive, impacted you in a positive way in your life. And I tell you to name 3 to 7 traits about each person you admired. And what that does is it helps me discover your value system. It
mhm,
doesn't discover your core values, but it helps me discover your value system. And the values are our guiding principles, right? And so it's so important that we know what those guiding principles are, and we align with people that can help guide us in the right way, and get us on the right path to success, and where we need to be, and then help protect us, and help our blind spots, if you will.
mhm,
My dad, he's 21 years in the military, a phenomenal man, one of my mentors, one of my heroes, not just somebody I look up to, but a true hero. Fought, a couple of different tours in Vietnam, and 21 years in the Army, Big Red One, and I speak about him a lot because he's an impactful person. He's helped me in so many ways, but he's helped develop who I am. And I wouldn't be who I am without men like that in my life.
mhm.
And women too. I mean, it's not just a man thing, right? It's a women
No,
and
it's definitely not.
I definitely don't leave my mom out of that arena either. And they both If I was set there to describe my dad today, I'd talk to you about a giving man. I'd talk to you about, well, he's willing to take the shirt off his back. You know, if I was to talk to you about my mom today, I'd talk to you about her kindness and our loving heart and her ability to support and see beauty even in the spite of, bad. So those are things that, we start to admire about our coaches, about our heroes, about the people that are mentors, and
Mhm.
they really formulate who you are.
Yeah, that's really good. And I look at it from the perspective too that the idea of understanding our own values, I don't know that everybody takes the time to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's very transformative when people do.
Yeah. And I think it's transformative because it helps us know, or I always tell people, know yourself.
Hmm.
Know yourself, because you have no right to lead other people if you haven't led yourself first.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And but if we know yourself and you know your values, you know what guides you, and then discover what those core values are. We usually have 3 to 7 core values that are, and I tell people this, they're your non-negotiables.
Hmm.
They're usually not an I'm sorry. They're usually I'm done, right? I'm just done. And even more importantly, in a relationship, if you've been married as long as I have, 23 years, you have better take on time at some point to discover her core values. Because if you don't, because what happens is we hear stories about this all the time. The little one, the youngest one of the family, grows up and he leaves or she leaves, and mama goes right out the door after, right after him. And it's like, what happened? Well, you violated a core value, and she was just waiting for her time to be done.
Hmm.
Right? You wake up one day and that person, that significant other, is not there anymore. And whether that's in business and you're in a relationship partnership with somebody, or in your personal life, we have a couples retreat for entrepreneurs, and it's a passion of ours, and we help couples discover their core values so they know how to navigate and not push the wrong button, if you will.
That's great. Um, Tell me, if you will, about maybe one of the hardest decisions you've had to make, and how you dealt with it, your process.
Man, I'll tell you. So from a business perspective, one of the hardest decisions I ever made was back in the downturn. And
Hmm.
there was a lot of people and a lot of investors, and even men that I counseled with at times, and they said, "Hey, Gary, these rental properties you have, if you can't afford to make the payments anymore, you need to just kind of hold on to the rents and just let them file foreclosure on you, but stockpile the rent money so you have something to take, that you don't lose in this situation." Boy, I had to really come to grips with that decision and kind of weigh and you know what, the more, I had a lot of good men even telling me, well, there's nothing wrong with it, and it's something you should do. And boy, I just could not settle on that, right? Like I just felt like I had put my word out there that I was going to make the payments, and that this bank had entrusted in me to do what was right. And even to the tune of not having anything, like we didn't just make the payment. You understand, like the escrows went upside down.
Hmm.
So not only where I didn't have enough coming in to cover the payments, I owed more on top of the payment, that I was getting from the tenant. And I took everything we had, our whole life savings, and kept paying the payments, to the tune that the bank actually called me in and said, "Hey, you probably need to let these go in foreclosure at some point here, don't you?" And boy, I fought it all the way to the end. I fought it. I even had my property management company send the rents directly from the property management company straight to the bank and bypass me altogether,
Hmm.
just to make sure they got every dime, that was coming in on those properties. And I just had to. It was a tough decision, when you're weighing like paying bills and taking your life savings and all that, and a bunch of influencers telling you that's okay to do. It was from a business perspective. You know, to some degree it was tough. Another degree it was like I knew in my own heart I was never going to do it. Does that
Hmm.
make sense? Like
Yeah.
in me, the decision was already made, but it was still, you have to act. You have to actually. So that from a business perspective, that was hard. The second hardest decision was definitely when I was recovering from Lyme, and we were coming out of the worst year we'd ever had, and making the decision to go back to that steady paycheck, or have enough faith to step out on my own and let God guide me in this world of entrepreneurship. You know, I don't care who you are, that's fear, and the fear plays a big impact on you. And that was definitely one of the harder decisions I've ever had to make.
Hmm.
And yeah, so like so many of them out there, so many decisions over the year. I think weekly we get faced with decisions that are hard to make, but those were probably some pivotal, what I call impact moments in my life.
Hmm. No, and I appreciate that. If you could start all over again,
Mm.
what would you do differently?
Oh man, if I could start all over again, um, I would probably tell myself to fail faster. You know, get to the point where fear is not holding me back, and if I'm gonna fail, fail. You know, but get there and move quicker. I also would have done if I mean, this would be going way back, not just in business, but in life in general. I would have read more at a young age. I would have picked up a book. I actually didn't fall in love with reading till I was about 33 years old, 34 years old, and I had already succeeded in business, but you know, learning to read was a pivotal point. Not just learning, I say learning to read. You understand?
Yeah.
Obviously I knew how to read, but I mean learning to love the art of reading, and
Hmm.
and it took like almost like a child. You know, I had to start with the books. First book I ever read was a book called Artemis Fowl, and it was a novel, you know, a fictional novel for 12-year-olds. And my wife was the interest. She was the pivotal point in it all. She would come to me and say, "Listen, just find something you enjoy. Find something you enjoy reading," because she's always been an avid reader. And
Hmm.
so, like, I think that's reading has been a pivotal part of my life, and learning the love of reading. The other thing that really helped me dive into reading was starting to write myself. You know, and so when I started to write at the age of 35, really started to wanted to consume more knowledge at that point as well.
Yeah, when you write, you tend to research, and when you research, you tend to read. And as you start to read one thing, you want to get other viewpoints, and it is amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
And obviously, that's some great advice. That everyone should probably read more than they do.
Yeah.
Now, in the area of advice, you deal with folks in the real estate space as well as other verticals. But if you were talking to the average real estate client, and I know none of your clients are average, but presume an average real estate investor came up to you and said, what is probably the most universal advice that you give to the investment community? What is one thing most investor organizations can do a lot better?
Focus. That one's so easy. Like I don't have to think about it. Like I don't know how many times
No, you nailed it. You just boom.
I don't know how many times a day I have to tell somebody to focus. You know, listen, I just tell them, hey, listen, I need you to focus. You know, not just focus like listening to me, but focus in business. You
Hmm.
know, especially entrepreneurs in real estate. My gosh, like quit chasing everything. Like focus, figure out what you're good at and focus on it. You know, and I don't just mean single family. Like even within single family, I had a client last year that that broke even. Okay, and he broke even. Why did he break even? Because he wouldn't stay focused. He wanted to fix and flip and wholesale. You know what he made really good money at? Wholesaling. You know what he didn't do make very good money at? Fix and flipping. He wasn't good at it.
Hmm.
You know, he didn't have the right people, he didn't have the right process, he didn't. And this is, you know, a client that we just started working with in the middle of the year. But my first question to him was like, why can't we focus? Why can't we do one? No, we're gonna do both. Okay, so you know, let's see how this starts to work out. And so it wasn't very long that I was working with him that I started to point out how much money he would have been making at this point if he would have focused.
Hmm.
So if you would have killed this other niche and you would have focused over here, your wife would love you right now, right? Like you would be providing so much value and money and security just in the last 6 months. And so like, we've got to stop chasing all these squirrels.
Hmm.
Um, Great book is 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. It talks about focus. The book Focus by Al Reese is a great book. Um, you know, and there's so many, the one thing, and
Mhm.
so many out there that talk about, you know, focus. And if we don't focus, it just creates a you know, a distraction. I have a book coming out right now that I'm writing. It's going to be out in the next couple of weeks, called "Is Your Business Sick?" And one of the things I talk about, you know, I got sick with Lyme disease, and when I got through that illness, you know, I realized, you know, Lyme is a parasite, and
Mhm.
it attacks the host, and so I started seeing some similarities in the way a parasite attacks the body, and parasites in business that rob the resources, time, money, those things from a business, you know. And some of those parasites are sometimes us.
Mhm.
We're our own parasite. I say we're a single point of failure in our own business. And one of the reasons that shows up is we don't stay focused. And we get off focus and we start chasing something else. And then we rob the resources from one business to help another business. And we're robbing time, we're robbing money, we're robbing success from the business over here. And that's one of the biggest lesson I learned one time. I was watching Shark Tank, and
Mhm.
a lot of great lessons on that show. But one of the biggest lessons I learned was not when they said yes to a deal, it's when they say no. And your audience right now could finish the statement when you've heard that show or watched it. They say, it's just going to take too much of my what? Time.
Time. Mhm.
And what are they saying? I'm going to be robbing my resource of time from here to give to you. And I can't do that. Right. And so we got most successful men in the world business talk about the value of time, you know, and we need to create focus. Guys, listen, when I was about to pass away in 2011, there was only one thing I wanted more of. It was time.
Time.
And I had to give an answer to myself, to my wife, my kids, and my God, and say, was I a good steward of my time?
Mhm.
And when we start chasing things, we destroy our focus, which robs our time and ultimately robs our success. So, you know, you get me real passionate about that when I start to, you ask a question that kind of gets me going, right? I get
Yeah,
pretty
I know.
passionate. I'm trying to keep it lower. Actually, I'm trying to tame it down, but I get really, really amped up on that one. So I
No, that's
apologize.
okay. That's good. We like amped up. No, I totally agree. I spoke to a group the other night, and you know, people always complain, I don't have enough time.
Yeah.
But if you watch television 2 hours a night, you're basically giving away 7 weeks a year
Yep.
of time that could have otherwise been productive at increasing your skill level, increasing your knowledge, increasing your whatever. And you know, unless you're watching something on PBS that's actually informing you of something that you can use,
Yeah.
you know, you're just not leveraging that asset to its max.
Yeah. And whatever you focus on is where your time will be spent. And here's the thing, I hear this a lot, that visionaries and entrepreneurs can't focus, and that is so untrue.
Yeah,
Visionaries,
I hear, oh, I have ADD.
yeah.
No,
And
you
you know
have
what? And
anxiety before.
I believe that that's a true thing. I do think people get ADHD or ADD, but here's the thing. It's not a matter of can they focus. I think they can. The problem is most visionaries, entrepreneurs hyper focus, right? They hyper focus on that for short periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the problem, is because if their business over here needs them over here and they get hyper focused over here, this really fails. It
Mm-hmm.
starts to fall apart. And here's the thing, they don't stay hyper focused over here very long before they go hyper focused on something else.
Right.
So it's not, visionaries focus just fine. They just stay hyper focused for very short periods of time. And that is a danger to business.
Well, that's a great observation. One doesn't typically think of that hyper focus as being, you know, a negative, and yet when you're taking your eye off, well, as Gary Keller likes to say, you know, keep the main thing the main thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, focus is critical, and it is that blind spot for so many.
Yeah. And people as visionaries use that as an excuse. I hear it all the time in masterminds. Well, I'm a visionary, so I can't focus. So I'm just doing this, and I need an integrator that can be focused. I'm like, that's such malarkey. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you have the ability to focus. Everybody has it, right? It's the fact of the matter is you're being hyper focused and you're allowing your hyper focus to go somewhere else instead of here. But don't cop out on this just
Hmm.
because somebody said that you as a visionary don't have the ability to time or ability to focus on something, right? That's just not it's just not true. So it's just a matter of mindset. It's a matter of focusing in the right direction.
Well, that kind of goes right back to where we started the conversation. Focus on truth.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. So I'm curious, when you're not involved in your business stuff, how do you play full out?
So like today at 2 o'clock, I go to our local school and I'm going
Hmm.
to be teaching a senior seminar class to seniors of high school
Hmm.
and helping them prepare for the future. We're actually going to talk today about their life story and what that story needs to look like at age 72 and planning. I love doing that. I love reinvesting back in the youth of
Hmm.
tomorrow or the new generation of tomorrow. I I'm a family guy. I love everything family. My kid, my son works in the business with me. He's in charge of my marketing company.
Hmm.
He flew to San Antonio with us this past week, and he'll go with us again this week. And my daughter's getting married in a couple months, and she's graduated from nursing school here in just less than 60 days. And I spend a lot of my time, bringing my two worlds together.
Hmm.
I've always taught my kids that work is fun and work is enjoyable. So my family doesn't ever look at it as two things. We've always looked at it as, this is a part of who we are.
Hmm.
And so, but if I have any sinful pleasures, it's Disney. I've been to Disney. I went to Disney 7 times last year. So I love to play. I enjoy playing. I collect a lot of things. I'll move my thing over here so you can see I got a little NASCAR there and stuff like that. I collect widgets and
Uh-huh.
like that. I don't know. I'm a little kid at heart, to be honest with you. Anybody that knows me, been around me for a long time, knows that first and foremost in my life is my faith, my
Hmm.
God, and I spend a lot of time giving, making money and giving money back to the Lord's work. Second is the youth of tomorrow, and third for me is on a personal level, just selfishly is I'm still a kid. I still
Hmm.
play video games. I still collect little toys. My wife makes fun of me for it. I still go to Disney. I stay young. I stay young at heart. I just I just don't want to grow up.
Well, that's the best way to play full out, man. You know,
Yeah.
stay eternally young.
Yeah. I
And
mean, I love sports. I play golf. I'm still a young kid. I'm 42, 3 years old, and my body's 43, and my mind is 17.
yeah. Well, there's one question I always like to ask our guests before we wrap up,
Okay.
and I'm going to ask it to you as well.
Sure.
What's the one question that you wanted me to ask that I didn't?
Hmm. The one question you wanted me to ask, but you didn't.
Something that you just want to share with folks, or that you think will be a blessing.
Well, I'm not sure it's a question. I think more of a statement for me is, never stop pursuing the things of life you want. Never stop going after it. Don't let fear stop you. And more importantly, if you have a loved one, you have somebody in your life that is significant to you. Entrepreneurs pursue every day.
Hmm.
We're going to pursue something. And I'm not just talking about like pornography or something bad. You know what I mean? Like pursue or alcohol and things like that that can distract you. And a lot of times we think when we're pursuing something we shouldn't, we're pursuing those things. And the fact of the matter is, most entrepreneurs don't have that. Most entrepreneurs have the problem pursuing business and work too much, right? But what I'm going to tell you today is don't stop pursuing your spouse. Don't stop pursuing your significant other. Like constantly re-recruit them, if you will, right? Like we dated them to get them. I still go on a date every week with my wife. I still text her. I still say, "Hey, sweetheart, would you like to go on a date with me this day?" And I still asked her out, right? Um, let's be honest. I mean, there's been times she says no too. So, right. I think it's just a way to keep me wanting to go
Uh-huh.
out with her, to keep that chase going because she knows me. Sometimes it's just I've done the wrong thing and she needs to, she's just telling me no because she don't want to. But, after 23 years, one of my biggest things, and I guess I wish you would ask is, how do we protect our relationships as an entrepreneur? Um, if I have to give one answer, that I think there's many. One of the reasons we have a couples retreat is an annual planning session for that relationship. We have it for business, we have it for everything else in life, but we don't annually plan for our relationships. And I would tell you on this call today, don't stop pursuing.
Mm-hmm.
Stop pursuing that woman. Don't stop pursuing that man. Keep chasing them, right? That's because I think our world is under attack right now, and business. And I think the first way that comes is at home. That relationship at home.
Yeah, I can absolutely agree with that. And I think that's really sagely advice. So thank you for that. And I definitely, Gary, I want to thank you so much, for joining us today and sharing your thoughts and your wisdom on success, on playing full out. And to everyone who's either listening or watching, thank you so much for being here as well. And always remember, no matter what you do, play full out.
That's awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.